I was very happy but also taken aback when both of my teams got into the next round and will meet each other. So the thing that I tried to do with them was to allow them to be more independent this round.
This is the first time we've seen that there is this phenomenon in the real society. So we have to work double to take more information and to build a case and rebuttals for these motions.
We spent like about a week to prepare for our motions, and we are pretty confident in our case now. So I think we are prepared very well for the motion part, and for the mentally part, like we talk a lot and we have conversations. So like we kind of boost our mentality. So I think we're pretty confident and pretty calm right now.
Aside from that, I just really focus on having more statistics, more evidence, and I also have had a couple of drills and spars with them in order to stimulate their ability to stay consistent and evolve the case.
This is a very special round for us because like two teams with the same mentor are facing each other, so I hope everything will go well.
We are also like very close friend with our opposition team, the Kefi Squad. So I think that we know our opposition team and we wouldn't get panic on the stage because like they are our friends and we know them.
Kefi, with passion.
We're here to win.
We believe in unicorns!
Come and ignite your passion. Ignite your passion.
Welcome back to The Debaters Season 3, a debate game show for high school students all over Vietnam. In production by VTV7 and British University Vietnam. My name's ~NG Hđị and I'll be your host today. We're now halfway through our show. We've selected our top 6 teams, and today they'll be competing for a slot in the semifinals. But just because you lose doesn't mean you're out of chances. Our judges will be keeping an eye out for their favorite team, and they will also get another slot in the semifinals, meaning that we will have 4 slots for the semifinals. With that being said, let's take a look at our motion for today. That we regret the glorification of self-healing among young people. Wow, this can definitely be a pretty touchy subject for some families. With all kinds of services being available nowadays for self-healing, such as online surveys or apps, it's pretty difficult to select a good method for self-healing. I think our students are going to have some pretty good ideas today to share with us about their opinions. With that being said, let's invite our teams out on the stage today. For the proposition team, we have the Rainbow Unicorns. And on the opposition team, we have Kefi Squad. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without our wonderful judges. So Stuart, how do you feel about the motion today?
So this is a really interesting motion, and I think it's very timely as well. Of course, during the pandemic, there was a lot of talk about self-healing and alternative methods for promoting self-healing and accessing self-healing. So especially for a young generation who, for some of them, have kind of been brought up through this pandemic, I would be very interested to hear what both sides say about this, and I think it's a very, very kind of timely and current topic. So I'm interested to see what their perspectives are, and interested to hear which way they take this debate today.
And Ms. Wing, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is there anything in particular that sticks out to you about this motion, maybe personally?
Personally, I feel this motion is very relatable to me because as a high school student, I used to look up different websites trying to find ways to balance and try to seek ways to make my mental health a little bit better because I was constantly being pressured to have high score because I was a gifted student, to make my family proud and all. So I feel that in this motion, it gives the platform for the teams today to talk about what they really feel and what they actually think is helpful for them. Also, in terms of technical, this motion is actually really, really difficult. So good luck, guys.
Nice. And Mr. Hugh, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever used any self-healing services yourself?
I think I'm a little bit lucky. I'm a little bit old, so I grew up in a time where there's not so much pressure, like a lot of my students today have to deal with. So self-healing is something very natural to me. So I tend to connect with nature and to disappear. So I haven't used any self-healing services. but I think it's something very timely and very relevant. And I think it's not just for young people, but it's also for older people as well. But I think young people is something that's interesting, that is timely, and I think it needs a lot of characterization from both teams to see why is it something that you regret or not among the young generation today. Yeah.
Thank you so much, judges. With that being said, let me invite our first two speakers up for this round. From the proposition team, we have VTV7 An. Please step on up. And from the opposition team, may I please have ngợi Can. Well, I'm gonna go ladies first. So you have lots of notes prepared here. How did you prepare for this round?
We prepare really hard for this round because like we cannot work with our mentor a lot. So yeah, like we have to do the majority of things on our own.
Okay, well, good luck, okay?
Thank you.
And An, I remember last time when I met you, you were very nervous. And today you look pretty confident.
Yeah, I was feel like there's no point in being nervous, so why don't I be as confident as I can?
That's pretty good. So no point to be nervous, just be confident.
Yes.
It's a good motto. Well, good luck to you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. And before we get started, let me review the rules really quickly. For the first round, each team will have 3 minutes to present. The proposition team will go first, and there'll be no POIs. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. With that being said, on your marks, get set, debate.
Mental health is very important, as well as the healing progress of each person. However, but you have to push yourself to heal and change your lifestyle completely in order to look good in the eyes of the society. It's impossible to feel good, and this is exactly what the clarification of the self-healing movement is trying to do. Now, let's look through our characterization. Self-healing movement is a media-based industry aimed at young people and gives advice on how to solve mental issues. And instead of this, our counterfactual will be professional medical help. And now let's move on to our first argument. The clarification of this movement will result in a burnout generation who has even worse mental health. Firstly, the self-healing movement is social media based, such as videos on YouTube, blog posts, forums, etc. Social media is based around likes and validation, so impressionable young minds who are more inclined to join this movement because of their mental problems will constantly compare their healing processes. This adds more pressure to their fragile minds. Secondly, the self-healing movement ironically requires a lot of money and is controlled by influencers who glamorize themselves or promote expensive healing lifestyle that enrich them. It looks like influencer Hiram, who claims skincare as self-care, or Elizabeth Gilbert, who said that traveling to Rome or Bali is the best way to heal. Therefore, the price for self-healing is now too big. This means young people are pressured to keep up with such luxuries and feel like it's their fault if they cannot afford self-healing, worsening mental problems in the process. Thirdly, misinformation also abounds in the self-healing movement. Why? As it's so easy for followers and influencers to share stories through social media even when they don't have any qualifications on mental issues. Therefore, young impressionable people take anecdotal experiences of mental illnesses and turn them into stereotypes. This will result in worse mental issues and unsafe coping mechanisms with mental illnesses. For example, a person that shares that working out heals their mental issues, which can be misconstrued as good appearance equals better mental health. This may lead to believing losing weight is the only way to love their body and love themselves, worsening someone's body dysmorphia and the way they are treated by society. On the flip side, this problem don't exist in our world. If the clarification of this movement doesn't exist, more people will get formal education on mental healing. They will go to therapy and seek help from reliable sources like professionals. With the existence of this movement, formal education cannot be achieved because people think that the media's glorified view on mental healing are already enough. Proud to propose. Thank you.
All is here to stand for people whose sufferings is forever remain invisible under their side of the house. Before moving on to my constructive case, some rebuttals, they talk about their counterfactual is professional help and therapy. We think that they're just assuming that it is accessible to everyone, right? I think it is inaccessible because one, cost. Like therapy and professional help usually cost people a lot, and secondly, like social climate. Like for example, parents do not have a will to like support their children like financially in order for them to access therapy in the first place, because they do not believe that there is such thing like mental illnesses in the first place. So coming to some setup before moving on to my constructive case, I think this debate is not about whether self-healing movement deserve this glorification or not, but rather the impact of the action itself can have on social issues and stakeholders. I think the movement looks like young people as content creators sharing their experience and methods they use through the movement, such as meditation, tutorials on how to like overcome their emotional trauma, or like breathing technique like on multiple media platforms. As a visualization, this looks like for example, you're scrolling through videos of influencer opening up about their mental problems. This means two things. One, the information is relatable and easy to get, and secondly, it is very diffused and insightful. Coming to my constructive case, why it promotes the recognition of mental illnesses and create a safe space for people with mental problems. We think it is really necessary that there is a clear overview of what this glorification actually looks like and why we think that it works. One, the movement itself is popularized, and it's the first thing that people think about when it comes to like mental health treatment, right? This means that we have a low barrier to entry. That is to say, even people who are because it is widely spread on media platform and tailored for mass consumption. That is to say, even people who are outside the movement can also be equipped with mental health gradually and effectively. The previous generation will recognize that they should stop burdening the youth. They should empathize with them more under prop. They still think that mental health is something that young people make up in order to have attention. Secondly, simplification and generalization of information. The masses are more likely to consume knowledge that is easy to understand, so the simplified terms, concept would ensure that we're able to reach out to the community. So though we do recognize that there is simplification of methods, the movement is bound to grow and improve its materials, information, in order to meet the standards given to it, because there is glorification in the status quo under outside the house, right? Thirdly, not how outside uniquely offers more treatment without glorification, right? People have less incentive to seek professional help in the first place because they feel burdened by social pressure, because lack of Medicare, which sometimes make them fail to recognize their problem in the first place. But fourthly, we tell you under outside the house, we exclusively creates a safe space for vulnerable. This whole idea is primarily about the comfort you have when you surround yourself with people from all walks of life who you see face the same problem as you and will not judge you for that reason. Because of that, we're so proud to oppose this motion.
Wow, nice work, guys. Perfect. So, looks like I'll ask Mr. Hugh, can I please have your feedback?
On the proposition side, I think your strongest argument is the final one, where you say that anecdotal evidence can lead to stereotypes, and then it leads to unsafe coping mechanism. I really wish that you could be more detailed in that, and then eventually what could that lead to? With the opposition team, I think you have strong mechanism about popularization as well, and simplification of very technical knowledge to the public, but eventually what could that lead to? I think you spend a lot of time on the rebutting and on the characterization, but then you only have 1 minute and 20 seconds. And I see your mechanism very strong, but eventually what the impact could be is something I feel like I'm missing a little bit on that side. On both of your team, I hope that you guys can approach this with a little bit clearer, because I feel like I still haven't seen the strong characterization of different young people groups. For me, I will give my 10 points to the team that give me a little bit better on the mechanism and the clarification. So my 10 points go to the opposition team.
Nice, thank you for hearing from you. And Mr. Stewart, can I please hear from you?
For the proposition side, again, I liked the clarity of how you built up your case. I guess I wish there was a bit more emphasis of, or a little bit more focus, was more interaction with the notion of glorification, because we kind of seem to jump straight to the idea of coming through social media, and we know all of the negative effects that social media has, but why specifically is it glorification? How do we know that what we're talking about is a glorified version of self-healing, and what is the particularly dangerous aspect of glorification? For the opposition side, again, you've set up your case really nicely and clearly. I think where you might stumble a little bit is part of your argument was that there is a social pressure to actually take on some of these self-healing, and that feeds directly into their argument against you. So you're actually using the social impacts of people wanting to take on this type of treatment. That's kind of almost dangerously feeding into what the proposition side are saying is a negative of this. So I'd be a little bit careful about pushing forward that part of your argument. Your rebuttal was strong, and also I think in the strength of the ideas that I think can be carried over in the remaining rounds, my points will go to the opposition side for the first round.
Well, Ms. Uing.
The thing that I want to point out in here are the thing that I'm actually different from my fellow judges. First of all, in terms of the rebuttals from the opposition side, I don't think your rebuttal was quite strong enough to attack the case of the proposition side, because in the end, you're basically telling me that, well, not a lot of people can access to that, right? And I think that's a very strong rebuttal, but it doesn't, rebut the fact that there would be a lot of students who, they use a lot of self-healing treatments, self-healing techniques, and then they're gonna become obsessed with it, or having different stereotype and all. I think their case still stand at a certain level. The proposition side, however, I think you have a very beautiful case setup, but I still don't see exactly how, if we, not going to have self-healing movement, how the student going to directly turn to, professional therapists, or, how they're going to help. So I think that's a little bit lacking in your side. For me, in the first turn, right, I would see if the case is strong enough for the proposition side. That's something that I really, really prioritize. For the opposition side, I prioritize the rebuttals. And I feel like you're not there yet to fully rebut the case from the proposition side. So proposition side, you have 10 points now, but you have to be very careful in the next rounds, because there are a lot of things that you have to fill in the gaps in your case. And good luck with both of you.
Thank you so much, judges. So your team has 10 points now.
Yes.
What are you going to do to get all of the points next round?
We will have to clarify the claims and the idea that our judges mentioned, and also, of course, we will add some new ones.
Add some new ones too as well, okay? Yes. Put a little bit of energy in there too, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good luck to you, okay?
Yes, thank you.
And my shy little friend, you stole all the points. Well, 20 of them. How do you feel?
I think 10 points is not that much, so we're gonna try in the next round.
Good, right? Haven't won yet. Gotta keep that effort going, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good luck to you guys, okay?
Thank you.
We've just finished our first round of debates, and the proposition team has 10 points, and the opposition team has 20 points. Still pretty close tie. Thank you so much, guys. You guys can please have a seat. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
The codification of this movement will result in a burnout generation who has even worse mental health.
People have less incentive to seek professional help in the first place, because lack of Medicare, which sometimes make them fail to recognize their problem in the first place.
I guess I wish there was a bit more emphasis of, or a little bit more focus, was more interaction with the notion of glorification.
Welcome back to The Debaters Season 3. With that being said, let's start a second round of debates. May I please welcome up from the proposition team, Chu Văn An. Please come on up. And from the opposition side, may I please welcome up Biden NG. Please come on up. So you guys are behind 10 points. What's your tactic to get in the lead this time.
Like the judges have said, I think in my turn, I will try to like push more impact and fill in the gaps where my teammate has left for me to fill. So I'll try to best to gain back my points.
Okay, sounds like you have a pretty strong strategy. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay. In opposition, you know, last time I saw you, you were like a little firecracker. You just explode.
Oh.
So do you have that same energy today?
I'm actually not sure how I would like explode, I don't know. But because this time our case has a lot of nuances, so sometimes I think I would have to tone down a little bit to make it more relatable, to make it more illustrative.
Nice, so sometimes you may have a lot of energy, but you have to try to control and channel your energy, right?
Yes.
Well, best of luck to you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we start this round, I'm going to review the rules very quickly. Each contestant will have 4 minutes to present your speech. During this round, POIs are allowed under 15 seconds, and the proposition team will go first. Any questions? Perfect. With that being said, let the debates begin.
First, let's move to some extensions on our argument number 1. In your world, where you glorify the self-healing movement, there will be misinformations about mental health and mental healing. So therefore, people will misunderstand about stereotype about mental illness. For example, many people, especially young people that are sensitive, believe that losing weight or working out or changing their appearances can change their health, can make their mental health better, that changing their looks, changing their appearance can make people love them. But this is completely untrue. But the young people still believe it, and therefore they turn to unsafe coping mechanism for the mental health, which is losing weight in a toxic way. For example, eating disorder or completely exhausted yourself until you look like those models on Instagram or on social media, until you look like those figures that on the social media that cannot even benefit you. Therefore, your work, the misinformation and stereotype is harmful for the young people. Now, secondly, in our world, we focus on maintaining the formal educations about mental health and mental healing. The people that are lucky, that are fortunate enough to receive this kind of education, they will gradually get better. The mental health will start to improve, and therefore they will find that this method is very effective, it's very efficient, and therefore they will encourage other people to seek professional help to get better as well. And gradually, the reliable and accurate sources of information in our world will become common and will become well known and can help many people and can be as various as your sources in your world. So therefore, our world where the formal education is focused, is more maintained, is a better world. Now, let's move on to some rebuttal on your side. In your world, you said that you have a more accessible sources of information. However, we accept the loss of awareness and therapy sessions in our world because we admit that it is harder for young people to seek professional help in our world. But however, we focus on the high quality formal educations about mental health and mental healing in our world, like I have explained beforehand. So therefore, we accept the trade-off, but we focus on the benefits in the longer run for our people. Secondly, you said that in your world, there is more information, and in our world, there is less acknowledgement about mental illness. However, we also have information and from more reliable sources than in your world. For example, in your world, in the opposition world, the information that the teenagers and the young people have the easiest access to is those on social media and those on the internet, where KOLs or influencers share their experiences on how to cope with their mental health. However, this is only their personal experience and personal thoughts, and they are not, the influencers and the KOLs are not even professionally qualified to share. I refuse to share about their health, their mental health, and how to cope. However, young people, they are easily affected. They will believe that using other people's tips can help them as well. So therefore, in your side, the information sources are harmful. And even if your side have reliable sources of information, there still exists the unreliable and the less accurate information from social medias and from the influencers online. And those are the ones that the young people have the easiest access to, and because young people cannot make money and they find it difficult to seek professional help, they will find information and find help through social media, to YouTube videos. So now let's move on. You said that you have reliable experiences, but however, each people cope differently and it is not comparable. So now let's move on to our second argument of today, where the toxic positivity that the glorified self-healing movement bring about among young people is harmful. Firstly, the original purpose of the movement is to heal our internal wounds. However, the glorification now overemphasizes the role of healing, where people have to be perfect and have to be perfectly happiness. So therefore, it has turned to anti-negative and create toxic positivity. Secondly, when people are stuck in that bubble of toxic positivity, they tend to avoid any potential sources of pain. And therefore, it is harmful for other people and for younger people to look to these glorifications of self-healing movement. And that is why I am proud to propose.
According to the State of the World's Children report, at least 13% of people aged 10 to 19 have had diagnosed with mental problems. So based on scope, we have already dealt with the most important mechanism in this debate, which means that we help the young people who in this society have been faced with stigma about having mental health in the first place, having mental problems in the first place. We have helped them to recognize this fact and what the proposition team gets wrong in this debate, because they think that, oh, self-healing, if you do self-healing, then you want to be perfect, then you want others to love you, which is not the case. The fact is that the society is conservative. They expect you to be perfect in the first place. So what self-healing helps is that it makes you feel comfortable with who you are. So it does not make you to feel more perfect or to be perfect as everyone else. So what they have mentioned directly clashes with our own. So what we provide in this debate, some more extension from my some extension in terms of like the obligation of the young people. Recognize that the young people in this debate, like they have the mental problems in the first place, right? Like if I am a person, this is a simple analogy. If I'm a person with like anxiety, with like stress, I would not have the incentive to spread the wrong information to the people out there because I relate to them. I don't want them to know, to say, to think that, oh, this is the right thing, even though it's the wrong thing. So I don't have any incentive to spread the misinformation that you just said. And on the point of like, oh, they don't have the medical license, we don't know why the medical license is important in this debate, because the fact that we don't share any kind of pills or like any kind of like chemical or biological treatment that you should get. It's all about your emotion. It lets you have a platform to share your understanding, to share your experience, which in this case does not require medical lesson at all. And when we talk about like, oh, a community, why our team creates the ideal intersection and solve the problem for the most vulnerable people. Recognize the fact that when we talk about like quality versus quantity, why on our side of the house, we have more of an incentive to improve the movement. When we talk about like, oh, people, they join in the movement, they think of this community because it's so emotional, it's so personal, right? They think of this as an extension of their own identity. So they think that they have the burden, they have the responsibility to improve it. To improve it in terms of like in terms of like quality and how to access to more people. So why the information on your side is not it's not comparable to this is because when we talk about like the movement being glorified, which means it's popularized, right? It also welcomes a variety of people. It means that we bring the diversity in terms of ethical, in terms of like gender, in terms of like racial. So these kind of people, they have their backstory, they have their origins, so they have a lot to talk about. So even in our startup, we have the diversity that can relate to the most people in general. So when you say about like, oh, the young people, they need the formal education, you're basing this on the fact that society also already recognized the problem with like mental health of the young people, which we don't think that is the case. The reason why we have self-healing in the first place is because your society does not recognize that young people have mental problems. So how could they have, like include like formal education on mental health if they don't recognize the fact that it has problem in the first place, which can only be maintained on our side of the house, because on our side of the house we based on social media, right? We can reach out to more people. We can tell them that, oh, young people are facing problems, and even people outside of the movement itself, like old people, older generation, they can also believe that, oh, their their children are facing some kind of problem, and then even in that case, there can be formal education on our side of the house too, because people recognize the problem, whereas on your side of the house, you don't have any mechanism to make society think that there is a problem, to provide education in the first place. So we don't see how that works. So when on the other hand, when we have about like, diversity, we also talk about community, right? We have a place for us to share without being afraid to be judged. So this is a community that will not exist on the other side of the house.
because all they talk about is like, oh, formal education, which only limited to people with like high socio-economic status, right? Which means that a lot of people are left out, and that is not what we want to aim in this debate. Because of all that reason, proud to oppose.
Good job, ladies. Put up a pretty good fight there. Judges, Ms. Wing, can I have your remarks first, please?
I think the debate got much better in the second round. For the proposition side, I think like you try really hard. I can clearly see your efforts. The thing with your speech is that you got me nearly there. You had brilliant ideas and then you stopped. And there are still questions that I want you to answer. The second thing I would personally advise is that trying to give and take POI, because on the round in front of the judges, we can see that one side is very active. She kept trying to ask for the chance to give you one POI, you didn't. And when she was speaking, you were completely silent and you didn't look at her, you didn't give her the POI. It created impression for the judges that you are not as confident as much as the opposition side today. The last thing I would say is that you have a few assumptions in this debate. It makes your speech a little bit less persuasive for me. For the opposition side, I only put one word in my feedback session for you, is that you have nuance. Because your team laid out a very nice foundation for you and you built on that and you explained to me in many different aspects. And I put this like button because I really, really loved your speech. It was beautiful. Just a few things I think that it could make your speech a little bit better. First of all, I like the fact when you mentioned about like, well, people don't have the incentive to spread wrong information. The thing is that sometimes it's not only about incentive. Incentive is a good rebuttal, but it is not enough because you have to put things into context as well. The second thing in here is when you're talking about credentials, I think it was a little bit of a blanket assumption when you say like, well, they're not giving pills and they're not giving prescription, that's why they don't need credentials. Aside from that, your argument was beautiful, your extension was beautiful, and thank you for that. My 10 points go to the opposition side today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wing. And Stuart, can I please hear from you?
I do have to agree with VTV7 for the proposition side. I thought it was excellent that you mentioned this trade-off, that, okay, we're talking about quality, not quantity on our side. We're talking about the fact that if we can at least educate a smaller amount of people, then that's going to have ramifications in the future. And you were building it up, and I was waiting for you to mention what those ramifications actually were, and then you moved on. There were a few areas which became a bit cyclical, and I know that timing was a bit of an issue for your round, and I think a lot of time was eaten up by this fairly kind of cyclical part of your speech, which reiterated very similar arguments. Basically, the main idea is that they don't have it's based on personal experience, it's easily accessible, but therefore it's not by professionally qualified people, and we know that easily accessible information is often information that has issues with it, okay? For the opposition side, your last part about community and diversity, making it a democracy in terms of accessibility to this information was by far the best point that I've heard so far on this debate. It's incredibly strong. It's going to be difficult for the other side to rebut, although I think there are quite a few holes that the proposition side can pick up in their rebuttal for the next round. However, that quite frankly blew me away. I thought it was a really, really strong idea and has huge impact as well. So my 10 points for the second round will also this time be going to the opposition.
Nice. Looks like you guys are at 40 points now, and over here we're still 10, but don't worry, you still got another judge. Mr. Hugh, can I hear from you, please?
On the proposition side, you know your problem. You run out of time at the end. You don't have time to pull out the strongest. I do believe that the toxic positivity is probably the strongest argument. I think the other thing that you need to also clarify at this point is you haven't really characterized strongly enough for me what is that high quality formal education. With the opposition team, I do agree with most of what my fellow judges have said. I think one nice thing about you is you start up by, now you start to characterize the self-healing movement here. Like you actually talk about self-healing here is not to portray something as perfect, but to be comfortable in your own skin. So I think that that is nice to have. At this time here, in terms of the argument of the whole case, I could lean towards the proposition team a little bit. I think you guys are doing very well in the execution and the delivery, but your ground is a bit more shaky for me. However, judge on this single debate round only, I give my 10 points to the opposition team.
Thank you, judges, for your remarks. With that being said, the proposition team has 10 points and the opposition team has 50 points. But don't worry, we still have 2 more rounds to go. Thank you so much, ladies. Please take a seat. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
The glorification now overemphasizes the role of healing, where people have to be perfect and have to be perfectly happiness.
The fact is that the society is conservative. They expect you to be perfect in the first place. So what the self-healing helps is that it makes you feel comfortable with who you are.
You got me nearly there. You had brilliant ideas and then you stop. And there are still questions that I want you to answer.
Come and ignite your passion. Ignite your passion.
Welcome back to the Debater Season 3. It's now the 3rd round of debates for today. Currently, the proposition team has 10 points and the opposition team has 50 points, but there's still no winner. We still have 2 more rounds to go, so don't worry. I won't keep you guys waiting any longer. Let's welcome to the stage from the proposition side, THPT An, please step on up. Welcome. And from the opposition side, may I please have ~NG Hጢ, please step on up. Welcome. So my friends, have you been listening to the judges' remarks?
Yeah, I have been.
Yeah? Have you made any big changes to your speech today, or are you still keeping to the original speech?
There's this small part that I would keep in the original speech, but there are also parts that I actually change in order to make it fit into like my role more.
Okay, well, sounds like you've made a few changes and hopefully that'll be to your advantage, okay?
I wish so.
Just don't be stressed out, just chill, it's okay, right? You'll do good.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck, okay? And my friend, you have some shoes to fill, I see here. Your 2 predecessors here are pretty strong.
Yes, we know that we are taking the lead, but I think that because the debate is not over, and I think that the opponent is still a very strong team, so with the highest respect, I think that I will do my 200%.
Okay, sounds like a good tactic. Good luck, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Before we get started, let's review the rules really quickly for round 3. The rules for round 3 are, each contestant will have 4 minutes to present your speech. POIs are allowed under 15 seconds, and the proposition side will go first. Any questions? With that being said, let the debates begin.
So my speech will be divided into 2 parts. The first part is the rebuttal, and the second part is the comparison between the 2 worlds of debate. Now let's move on to the rebuttal. When the first speaker of the opposition team came here and said that the information that influencers have is reliable, this is wrong because influencers have a completely different life from normal people. So, and in order to have effective mental health solutions, you need someone to identify the problem from the roots. Someone who has professional training, like psychologists and mentalists, people that exist in our world. And even if it is reliable, it only solves a small part of the problem, or even not solving it at all. Because as human, we may have similarities, but someone who lives a normal life is far from close to someone who is exposed to social media, who faces the eye of the public. And we are not the same. And this would only solve a small part of the problem. And later on, it will lead to completely nothing because it wouldn't solve the problem at all. And now let's move to the rebuttal for the second speaker. When you say that the people in your world don't have the incentive to spread misinformation, this is wrong because in the opposition world, there are great popularity and the media companies, influencers, gain money from this. They gain money from posts, from social media. They gain money from likes and comments. And you also said like how society like perfect images. So these people and like media companies would create perfect images in order to get money
from posts, and they would say how they are relatable to other people, because this would get them likes and comments, which will later benefit them in the media companies. And when you say we don't have acknowledgement, we say that we have acknowledgement, because from mental problem, there are still products of professionalism, like therapy sessions, books, lectures, like my first speaker have characterized, and there are still acknowledgement. And even if there are no acknowledgement, it is still good, because this is the foundation for motivation. And this would be explained by the comparison of the two worlds. And now let's move on to the second part, which is the comparison of the two worlds. So in our work, we trade the spread of awareness for the high quality healing methods. But this trade-off is worthy, because we actually have high quality healing methods. In a world where self-healing movement isn't glorified, it is not popularized by influencers, KOLs. So therefore, we do not have any motivation for people to write many inaccurate reports on the internet. Moreover, since there are no free resources online, people will actually have to seek professional help like psychologists, mentalists, therapy sessions, and this will therefore heal them, which means that our fits into the long-term benefits of the debate. And now let's move to the worst case scenario of our world. Is the amount of people who get access to professional mental health is really low, and the awareness of psychological disorders is little known. However, in this case, we have the negative emotion that would later turn to the motivation for people to develop themselves. And later, this would contribute to the development of the overall society. Now let's move on to the best case scenario of the opposition side, is that when everyone somehow actually gets healed by these free products of glorification from influencers who live a completely different life from them, and they get satisfied with how they are and stop developing themselves, because now they are satisfied, they are healed. And this would create a toxic in positivity that also encourages people to dismiss other people's drama, signing the blame on them and not healing well. It actually means that this toxic positivity actually makes everyone hate negativity, which is good for providing the motivation. When you see other people who is better than you in studies, in class, you would feel bad about yourself, how I'm bad, and then you would study, and then you would study to get good, which means that the society in the best case scenario of the opposition team is lacking development, and which means that our worst case is better than your best case overall. And that's why I'm proud to be the proposition team.
Coming to the two clashes of this debate. The first clash here is that in terms of quality and quantity of self-healing related informations, which should be prioritized in this case. Now, the context that we are debating about is that the society is mindless about mental illness. Therefore, the fact here is that rather than trying to provide a qualitative information, in this case, we prioritize to bring the biggest access to as many people as possible. We believe that this is the most important thing for three reasons. Number one, the qualitative information on the propositions requires checking and checking mechanisms. So, this is problematic because it makes the information slower to be accessed to a wide majority of the people. And I will prove in the second clash why this is matter. And two, the quantity that we prioritize on the oppositions means that this information is simplified and it is spread by a majority of the people. Now, we believe that this is very important because, as we said, the problem in the status quo, people have to realize the existence of self-healing, of mental illness of the young people to really know how to deal with it. And by glorifying it, we exclusively bring the awareness to these people. And now, come to the question about self-awareness. Yes, I will take out the rebuttals from the propositions. Now, even if self-awareness is based on something shaky and based on misinformation, yes, it is something which is still a good thing because at least those people will have the motivations to care more about their mental health. And even if it is the wrong way of taking care of them, they will find another way to take care of them because the top priority of these people, of these vulnerable people, is all about mental health. Therefore, those who are mentally ill will be afraid of receiving criticisms from the society, and which just make them uncomfortable to tell them stories. And only on the opposition side we can create this. Now, let's come to our second clashes, who protect the most vulnerable people in a better way. Now, I will talk about the urgency of the problem in this case. Like, when we talk about mental illness, we usually assume that this is a problem of the minority of the people. Unfortunately, this is the problems of the majority of people within society, including us. Now, just remember, at the age of 15s or 20s, you will at least have that intentions of ending your life, or at least you have the anxiety or depressions, but on different levels. So this is more true because we are facing the like peer pressure and generational pressure. Now, the problem is so urgent that we need to glorify self-healing. By doing this, we provide information in the speedier and a more abundant way. So at least we give them a better escapism, so that when they need therapy or escapisms, they will have abundant information to heal themselves. And I will do two ways to prove why we outweigh the propositions. One, those who are already mental ill cannot find escapism on the oppositions. And the thought of ending their life on the positive propositions will manifest, which will lead to a higher suicide rates. And that is why on the proposition, it's a more dangerous world. And secondly, who is on the edge of anxiety? We believe that we protect these people better because we give them the methods, we give them the awareness so that they can have preventions of taking care of their own mental health, which is good. So at the end of this debate, we protect the most vulnerable people. We redirect the social stigma and we protect the other people around them. Very proud to oppose.
Wow, nice job, guys. I sense a little bit of emotional connection here. Are you guys pretty good friends, or do you guys know each other?
We know each other very well.
You guys are in the same school?
Yeah.
So is it difficult to have to be on the podium debating against a really good friend?
No.
No?
No.
Was it hard for you? Is it hard for you to have to go against a friend?
Yes, it's a bit hard for me for being against my friend, because I think that she knows a lot about me and how I'm gonna use my material in my speech. So I think that I am pretty predictable to her.
You're pretty predictable to her. Well, let's see. Maybe she has an advantage on you. Maybe not. Let's see. Okay. Judges. Oh wait, I don't think I started with Stuart yet. So, Stuart, can I hear from you first?
You can. For the proposition side, you did manage to kind of talk about the impact. However, I think there are a few elements that you kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit. But overall, I think the notion of toxic positivity is a very, very strong idea. And you developed it to a certain extent. It needed a bit more development. But I think across both sides, that was probably the strongest notion. And I think taking that from the second round and trying to kind of clarify it a little bit in this round was a very strong move for you guys. For the opposition side, I think there's still a few kind of assumptions about what the other side is saying. So we were mentioning that the other side, that we don't recognize mental health and that there isn't kind of really an awareness. There still is an awareness, it just comes through a different form, and it's not necessarily that the other side doesn't have awareness in their society, but it's more about the kind of the size of awareness and the ramifications. What you did do in your round is you were very, very clear with noting what was the first clash and what was the second clash, and importantly, you were mentioning that for the other side, their characterization of the world is more dangerous. Effectively, you really talked about the impact in terms of like what it could have on a generation of young people. So you were mentioning that the other side is a more dangerous world. I still, however, think there are loose ends for both sides of this argument. I'm not fully convinced for either side at the moment. There are still definitely areas that needs defining. What I want to see is, I want to see this debate actually go into the fourth or the final round personally. So my 10 points are going to go to the proposition side, mainly because I still think there are elements that both sides need to address before I can really make a full decision on which side overall is the winner for this debate today.
Nice, thank you so much, Stuart. And why don't I ask Mr. Hugh, can I please have your remarks?
In terms of style, I like the style of the opposition team. It is very rare to see a debater who come onto the debater season and have this calm, collected debating style, which give so much structure and clarity to your thoughts and your logic. Have to think a little bit is because like I feel like you deliver things well, but at the same time there's no strong argument that really stick out. Every single argument is okay. With the proposition team, like you don't have that clarity of structure and layout arguments like the opposition team, and I think you know that too. I think the one that really stand out for me is when you're trying to compare between high quality versus self-awareness, and one idea that really stand out is, at least in my words, there's no incentive to write and spread inaccurate information. So at least I don't have to worry about that kind of like damaging, potentially very damaging on the extreme side of the toxic positivity. I do believe that is like the strongest criteria so far. So that's why I'm really kind of like back and forth. Do I give to someone who has like a nice style, delivery, structure, ideas are clear, or to someone is a bit jumbled and messy in the beginning and the end, but like there's this kind of like one big sparkle of idea in the middle. Again, for me, stand out the whole case right now, which team convinced me the most? I still believe that if you raise self-awareness on something shaky and inaccurate, it potentially cause more damage. So I'm gonna pass the tough challenge to VTV7 to see if the case is gonna go to the reply speech or not. So this time my 10 point go to the proposition team.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, proposition is at 30 and opposition is at 50. So, VTV7, are you gonna break it? What are you gonna do?
In the last speech, the two speakers did not persuade me to give the points to neither of you guys, and here are the reasons. For the proposition side, first of all, it's really small when you need some POIs. Like, I mean, like you're kind of like in a situation that you desperately need to win now. So you have to do everything to win. I just feel like, you know, like there are more that you could have done and you didn't do everything. Second of all, I feel like in your speech, the biggest strong point, also your biggest problem is that you rely a lot on professional therapy. So if there are some therapists that doesn't actually help the patients, there are a lot of problems in professional therapies as well. And if the opponent team address those issues, how are you going to respond to that? And I need you to go a step further to even look at the worst case scenario of your side and tell me how you're actually going to deal with that. And I really like the rebuttals. I think your rebuttals are highlights of your speech today. Very well done. For the opposition side, I agree that your structure is very clear, but you didn't highlight enough points of your team. So there are some points, I think the second speaker mentioned about the safe space. I didn't think that it was really highlighted in the speech, and I think that was something a little bit lacking of in here. The third thing is also like the breaking point for me between the two teams is that, so prop gave me really strong rebuttals. I feel like the ops case was a little bit rigid. You should flexibly engage with the newly, you know, with the rebuttals that the proposition side brought up to the debate as well. Instead, I feel like you kind of stick to your own case a little bit more. So because of that, overall, I can see like in your team, there are some highlights about escapism or, you know, like when you talk about accessibility. But aside from that, the diversity of idea is on the prop side, and also you didn't respond to a lot of points that was rebutted or defended by the proposition. And for that very small point, my 10 point go to the proposition side today.
Amazing. So, with that being said, the proposition side has 40 points and the opposition side has 50 points, meaning there's still no clear winner. Thank you guys. Please have a seat. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with our reply speeches.
As human, we may have similarities, but with someone who lives a normal life is far from close to someone who is exposed to social media, who faces the eye of the public.
When we talk about mental illness, we usually assume that this is a problem of the majority of the people. Unfortunately, this is the problems of the majority of people within society, including us.
I think the one that really stand out for me is when you're trying to compare between high quality versus self-awareness.
Welcome back to the Debaters Season 3. We've now come to our reply speeches, and it's still a pretty close race. With that being said, let's invite our speakers up. From the proposition side, may I please have Chu Văn An. Hello.
Hi.
And from the opposition side, may I please have PHİN ĐޮI. Step on up. So, your predecessor, she put a pretty good fight up. How are you going to do this time?
I think I'm going to try to get the point that she didn't get out from the beforehand round out, get those points out and try my best to gain all 15 points from the judges.
Okay, nice, perfect. And Ms. Lam, you did a pretty good job the last time, and what are you going to do this time to improve your speech?
By it's this far in the debate, right? So I think the two worlds are now pretty clear. I just need to point it out and show how we advance further.
Okay, perfect. Good luck to you. Before we get started with our reply speeches, let's review the rules really quickly. Each contestant will have 2 minutes to complete their speech. There will be no POIs during this round, and this round is completely anonymous, meaning that the judges will not give any feedback. Are we clear?
Yeah.
And this time, the opposition side will start, okay? On your marks, get set, and debate.
We believe that society will only provide formal education when it sees that there is a problem to educate people about. So this is the one thing that the proposition side has not responded to us. We don't see why, when in a society that is so conservative, they automatically know that they need a formal education to educate people on mental health. But even if I'm being charitable and accept their best case, that this is the one of the world that is going to happen, why is it still bad? When we talk about the world, the counterfactual world that the proposition side gave us today, it means that that is the world where only the rich and privileged people can access formal education on mental health. So this spreads the message that can you only have good mental health if you are rich and well off, if your parents own buildings and mansions. And this is not the aim that we are going through in this debate. When we talk about the rich and high socio-economic status, that will definitely affect formal education. It means that the proposition side had failed to protect the most vulnerable people in this debate, because the rich already has access to therapy in both worlds, right? So it's not much a problem for them. But in this case, the vulnerable actors like the racial or the people in our diversity of racial, gender, or people that are poor, they cannot access this kind of information. So basically, they cannot have good mental health on their side of the house. But compare it to our world, where we can guarantee that there is information for all, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of how much your parents made. So because of this, as it glorified, people from all walks of life will have the incentive to bring their story on the table. Notice how everyone has their own origins. Everyone has their own story on healing process, their own very unique experience. So this would share to others, and there would be more depth and there would be more nuances on our side of the house, because people get to express themselves without the fear of judgment from society. Because even in the world where formal education is allowed, there is still conservativeness in the society, and they cannot change this because they don't provide any kind of mechanism at all. Because of all that, fail to oppose.
The opposition side of the House focus on the quantity of awareness and of information. But how long will that quantity exist and last until the people of their side feel empty and lack of motivations because they dismiss their problem? They see that there are relatable people on the internet. There are relatable people with the same problems as them out there. So they will feel as if they don't need to fix themselves. They don't need to fix this to solve their problems. They will fall. They will be stuck in that bubble of toxic positivities. And even if in our world the therapy and the professional help doesn't work, we let the people be self-aware. Our self-awareness here is a self-aware in which the people are not being affected by the society's opinion. They are not being told what to do or what to wear or what to be like in order to be happy. The self-awareness in our world is all natural, and therefore young people can heal all naturally. And second of all, our world prepare people for the longer term to be the best versions of themselves. in our world, people heal, people try to be the best version of themselves at the moment in order to improve themselves in the later futures. And therefore, our world is a better world for the younger people. And third of all, in your side of the world, you give it the idea of the community to be safe enough to share and to share your mental illness and to share your problems. However, what if your people on your world drown and find comfort in their sadness, in their problems, and in those communities? They find that there are people like them. They find that people have the same problems as them. What if they find comfort in that? What if they don't want to get out and they don't want to solve their problem at all? They will only dismiss their problem and they will become only worse. And finally, the society mindlessness of our world will be better, because when society does not care about mental illness or self-healing or mental healing at all, there will be less people wanting to spread fake news and fake information, because this does not profit them anymore. So therefore, proud to propose.
Thank you so much, ladies. This round is completely anonymous and we'll have no comments from the judges. So thank you. Please take a seat. And we'll be right back with our results. Welcome back to the Debaters Season 3. Before I reveal our final results, I'd like to present a special prize to the most valuable speaker. We have a remote audience that has been watching the whole time, and they've been voting on the most charismatic and the best speaker for tonight. The winner will receive a prize of 1 million Vietnam đồng. The winner will not affect the final results, but this is just an additional incentive to help the students fight a little bit harder. With that being said, let's take a look at the board to look at the live voting. Wow, it looks like VTV Lam. May I please have you come up to the stage? Yeah. Nice. I'd like to present this award to you, and you will have the prize of 1 million Vietnam đồng. How do you feel?
I totally did not expect this because I actually lost this award the last round. So I think this would definitely be something that I cherish a lot coming even after this debate and after this competition as a whole. Really.
Good work.
Thank you.
Yeah. With that being said, can I please have the rest of the contestants to the stage to reveal our final results? Currently, the proposition side has 40 points, and the opposition side has 50 points, meaning that these results will send one team to the semifinals. With that being said, let's see who's the winner. Okay, vote number 1, opposition team, 5 points. Meaning that you guys are the winners, but let's check and see. 5 more points for the opposition team. And lastly, opposition team. Meaning that the opposition team has 65 points and the proposition team has 40 points. Meaning that you guys are the winners. But don't worry, guys, there's still one more chance, because after the round of 6 is finished, the judges will pick their favorite team to also go on to the finals. So don't give up yet, okay? Perfect, thank you guys so much. With that being said, I'd like to send a very special thanks to British University Vietnam for sponsoring our program today. Thank you guys and see you guys next time. Bye.